Welcome to Basic Brewing Radio for Thursday, January 8th, 2015. I'm James Spencer. Here at Basic Brewing Radio, we're all about home brewing. This week, BrewTuber SJPorr talks about the homebrew community on YouTube and the competition that bears his name, the SJPorr Challenge. If you're new to home brewing or would like to get into the hobby for the first time, check out our website, basicbrewing.com, where you can find archives of our audio and video podcasts and our DVDs to walk you through basic and more advanced brewing techniques. You can follow me on Twitter. My username is Basic Brewing, all one word. We have a Basic Brewing Radio and Basic Brewing video page on Facebook at facebook.com/basicbrewing. We're also on the Google Plus, too. And thanks again to everybody clicking on the Amazon.com associate link on our basicbrewing.com site, especially during December. What a wacky month. You know how it works. Whenever you think of Amazon shopping, think of us first. Click on our associate link on basicbrewing.com. It's right there on the right-hand side of the page. That'll take you to Amazon where you can shop to your heart's content, as you normally do. It won't cost you any extra, but you'll be helping us to bring you the show. We greatly, greatly appreciate your support. We also have associate links for Brew Your Own Magazine and the American Homebrewers Association on our site as well that work in a similar fashion. You can find our Basic Brewing iPhone app on iTunes, our Android app on Amazon.com. We have a Windows Phone app. We're on the BlackBerry Podcast Directory, and we're in the Stitcher app as well. If you want to put a tip in our tip jar, some coinage in our guitar case, you can go to basicbrewing.com/support. And thanks to everybody who's done so already. And I posted the annual bonus video episode this past Friday on our Basic Brewing app. So if you have the app, you should see that. And if you contributed to the tip jar this past year, you should have gotten an email letting you know how to access the episode and the recipe that goes with it. And so if you have contributed to the tip jar this past year and you haven't gotten your email from me, check your spam folder first. And if it's not in there, email me to let me know, and I'll send you the link. This year's bonus video was a lot of fun. Steve made cabbage rolls, which were delicious. And he had a little near accident in the middle of the thing that was pretty funny. So instead of cutting that out, I left it in. Also, while I'm thinking about it, thanks to everybody who sent in letters to the annual disaster show last time. I've sent out almost all the prizes for that. And again, we appreciate the Brew Hauler people for sponsoring that episode. And we hope that 2015 is disaster-free for everybody. But if you do have a little brewing disaster, remember it for next year for the the disaster show. And, of course, we hope that everything disaster-wise that happens is injury-free. No fun if people get hurt. Let's take a look into the mailbag. Listener for the first time in 2015. Listener Chris emailed after hearing the episode with the roasted grains experiment. Chris says, for equipment reasons and a disinclination towards 3-gallon brew-in-a-bag batches, I'm pushing the boundaries of partial mashes and found the episode immediately useful. I recently did an oatmeal stout with approximately 6 pounds of grains and oats in a partial mash. Handling 6 pounds was a bit of a hassle in nylon bags, but if the roasted grains can basically steep after the mash, in the wort basically, it increases how much grain instead of extract I can use in a batch because I have less grain in the brew kettle at any one time. How to use this newfound power, I still haven't decided. Well, there you go. I like it when people listen to the episodes and get some new information and then expand upon it. That's awesome. Very cool. Rick writes in from the Pacific Northwest. Rick says, for Christmas, Santa delivered a beer calendar with 365 descriptions of beers or other fun facts. You might find the one for this week very interesting. Rick says, it says a Reinheitsgebot 2.0. The Reinheitsgebot, or German beer purity law, is one of the most famous legal edicts in beer history, limiting German brewers to just 3 ingredients, malt, hops, and water. In the 20th century, the law was amended and updated as the, and you're going to have to forgive me, the Beer Steuergesetz, or beer taxation law. But in 1988, a European Court of Justice ruled that the law was protectionist, and beer imports to Germany could have any ingredients allowed in food. In 1993, Germany updated its own laws, and German brewers are now held to the slightly looser Biergesetz, which which permits water, malted barley, hops, yeast, additional malt grains, and sugar. Doesn't say anything about fruit and spices, but hey, progress. there you go. Rick says, on another note, I really, really enjoyed the Brewing Disaster podcast. My wife enjoyed it as well. Well, there you go. That's extra credit. I especially liked the last one mentioned. I occasionally attend Mount Si meetings and know Zot and Mark. Mark is a good brewer when he can keep his glass whole. If you'll remember last time, Mark was the one that had all the glass breaking, including a shower door. Rick says, in fact, Mark brewed his Thai basil beer at Hi-Fi Brewing, which was called Thai-Fi. Hi-Fi Brewing, which is just a couple of miles from here in Redmond, was founded by 3 other Mount Si members, Joe, John, and Ryan. My wife and I often go there from time to time, and we run into Zot and his wife. There you go. We had a lot of fun up there, up and around Seattle and Redmond and all, when we went up there for the National Homebrewers Conference a little while back, thanks in large part to Zot. So we attended a Mount Si meeting as well, I believe, didn't we? Hard to remember. We had a lot of fun, even though Zot refused to drive us back to see the bear that we saw on the side of the road. We were in a big truck. What can a bear do? I know, a bear can do a lot. Okay, now let's get to the meat of the matter. Homebrew has been a part of YouTube for a long time. There's a ton of info out there about the hobby. And I was alerted recently to a competition between BrewTubers, as they call themselves, that is a bit different in how it's set up. And for more on that, let's hear from the originator of the challenge, SJPorr. SJPorr, welcome to Basic Brewing Radio.
Howdy. Thanks for having me on today.
Oh, sure. You're welcome. And first of all, before I forget, I want to thank Dan Pixley for suggesting that I talk to you and talk about the challenge and talk about the homebrew community on YouTube. So Dan's been on the show before, but I want to reach out to him and say thanks.
Yeah, Dan's a great guy. He and I talk often.
Without our listeners providing suggestions, we would have run out of stuff to talk about a long time ago. So I want to encourage that as much as possible. Talk to me about, you are SJPorr, SJPorr on the YouTube. If people want to find your channel, and get in touch with you and watch what you've been doing. But give us some background. How long have you been brewing, first of all, and then how did you evolve that into going online with it?
Oh, yeah. So I've been homebrewing for now probably 9, going on 10 years probably, when we started all off. It actually all started back at the Virginia Brew Fest. Another YouTuber who we grew up together, Laramo22. He and I grew up together in high school and the whole 9 yards. He moved down there, and he was already homebrewing, and I had showed a little bit of interest in it. And we had bought a kit, the wife and I, probably 2 years prior, and you've probably heard this story a number of times where you buy a kit and it finds its way in the closet for a couple years.
Well-aged hops.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It ages before we even started to brew it. So we went down there for Brewfest. We had done a couple Brewfests up here in York, Pennsylvania, and went down there. Larry was actually, his name's Larry Lentz. He was actually doing a brew, and I was like, man, this is really cool, so I got to give this a try. And came home, and I think it was the very next weekend, we got that kit out, and my neighbor came over, and we brewed it up out in the garage. And for lack of a better way of putting it, it's been downhill ever since as far as the home brewing goes.
And back at that point, what were your resources for learning about homebrew?
Wow, I actually spent. I'm one of those guys that it's research, 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 and then when you figure out that you've researched enough, I went and I researched a little bit further, and I actually went on to YouTube, and I had already had a channel started at that time, but it was more of a channel to where I was just watching videos, and I hadn't really got into doing the videos things at that particular time. But I went on and I started watching probably the same guys that the other folks have been watching for years, and it's Craig Fairway.
Oh, yeah.
He and I have become pretty good friends over the last couple years. Started watching his stuff and a few other ones. And it kind of, what that does is it gives you an opportunity to watch somebody actually do it, and you kind of can get a good feel that way. And so I really watched on YouTube quite a bit, and once I jump into something, it's usually both feet, and boy, we were off to the races from that point.
How long did it take before there became kind of a critical mass on the YouTube homebrew community front? You guys call yourselves BrewTubers, right?
Yeah, that was actually coined, and I can't exactly remember who it was that actually gave the original coin of BrewTubers, but it stuck, and it really started out with just a handful of people, and guys like Craig Tube and Bobby from New Jersey, and there was a bunch of other guys. Dwarf68 at the time was doing a lot of YouTube videos and whatnot, and we actually just kind of reached out to each other through, at that time it was real easy to do personal messages back and forth. YouTube has since evolved, and that's not nearly as easy as it used to be, so we were able to just message each other back and forth and whatnot, and then we started doing videos to each other, right? But through YouTube, and then it's kind of funny because it just kind of started to grow on its own. It was almost like at perfect storm. Is about the best way that I can put it, because people started to really show an interest, and people started, people I didn't know started to comment, leave me PMs, and then it just continued to grow.
And how do you use YouTube now? What makes it so different as a community?
Right now, YouTube, it has gotten very educational as far as on the homebrewing side. You can go on there. I can remember back in the day when I would go to my local homebrew club, right? You'd go down to your local store, and they would be like, I'd say, well, I was on the internet the other day, and the first words out of their mouths would be, oh my God, you don't want to do anything that they do on the internet. That's all garbage.
Because we can't control that.
Exactly.
They might say something different from what we tell you to do.
Exactly. Yeah. And it was funny because the more they told me not to do that, and I started researching, I'm like, no, wait a minute. These guys aren't a bunch of kooks. They actually, they know what they're talking about. And, and it's evolved into an educational and sharing of ideas. It's really cool.
And there is an interaction to it. It's not just people posting videos just for people to watch. Right. It's a back and forth.
It really is. It's a very odd way of putting it, but it's like it's a video conversation. It's like you have one conversation. It's posted on the internet. And then that conversation can grow or it can stymie. It really all depends on if it's something that you perk the interest of another viewer.
And you kind of formalize that by instituting what's called Homebrew Wednesday. Now, what is Homebrew Wednesday?
Homebrew Wednesday is it's a means of homebrewers to be able to share their ideas, their recipes, their equipment, their hey, look what I built, as it might be, and show other people out there that are homebrewing. It gives them a means of sharing those ideas. I kind of go about it as it's not really a vlog of sorts, because a vlog would be just me posting out every week, you know, something different. That would be a vlog. It's more of a open forum vlog to where everybody that wants to share their ideas. It just kind of gives them a format to do it in, and it kind of gives it a, believe it or not, a structure of whatnot. When Wednesday rolls around, if you have a YouTube channel, your feed's going to be filled with Homebrew Wednesday videos.
And how does that work? I mean, how do all these Homebrew Wednesday videos get sort of aggregated together? How can I tune into that?
Really, if all you really need to do is go in and do a general search in your search end or in your search bar on YouTube, and just do a search for Homebrew Wednesday, and you will see over 30,000, depending. Your initial hit will probably give you like 33,500 videos, and then you can actually, from that point, you can actually filter it down to more recent, within a year, within the week, within that day. You can really filter it down then.
Are there some more regulars that are more popular than others? Are there some kind of stars that have risen out of the Homebrew Wednesday?
There has been. There's been Homebrew Wednesday now has gone on for, I want to say, 4 years, and it's incredible to me every week whenever I tune in and I try to watch as many as I can. There are some regulars out there that they don't miss Homebrew Wednesday, and they've been doing it now. I mean, that'd be kind of cool, for a month or two. Now I'm talking about, take Craig Fairway, for instance, on CraigTube. I don't know that he's missed a Wednesday in 3 years. And that's incredible to me. So CraigTube is really taking it, and and that helps us, helps us all. You have a couple really good, like Tom for another one, Paul Wicksteed out of New Zealand. Great videos, and he tries to hit every week. You got Sam Larkman, who's under the Thrifty Brewer up in Canada. You've got Under the Table Brewing, Nate and Brad Pico out in Illinois. Laramie 22 down in Virginia. I mean, there's really a whole host of people that hit them all the time.
So what are the most popular types of videos that you find on Homebrew Wednesday? Tastings or brewings or?
You'll see a little bit of both. A lot of guys, it really depends on their style of video. We use, for an example, Time for Another One. As far as educational goes, there's certain guys. Oh, and Dan Pixley, Dan ABA. He does great educational videos to where, I mean, he's really into the sours. And if you want to learn about sours, I suggest anybody to go to his channel and watch his videos. He's great when it comes to explaining that stuff. Paul Wicksteed out in New Zealand, great. He'll do a series of different things like all flavors. I think he did a whole series of those. If you go through the BJCP and you want to know what diacetyl and all that jazz tastes like, you can go to one of his videos and he'll have an explanation of that. So it really depends on the style of the YouTuber.
Now, you've come up with, I assume you've come up with it because it's got your name on it, the SJPorr Challenge. How did that start?
That, again, kind of started by accident, and it kind of works together with the Homebrew Wednesday and the BrewTubers in general. So about 4 years ago, it was just me and a handful of other YouTubers. Jameson, I don't know if any of these people ring a bell, but some of them are reviewers of beers and whatnot. So it was like 5 of us got together and we're like, hey, let's kind of do a beer swap of sorts. And it started out with that, and it was just 5 of us. And then we would do videos on what we did. People were like, hey, that's really cool. And they started asking, well, can you do it again? If you do, we'd love to be part of it. So it would grow year after year, and then we went into a phase where it was known as the Hokey Homebrew, and that was me and another YouTuber by the name of Hokey Homebrew. We did experiments, and it would be like the yeast, like your general stuff you see at your local homebrew store clubs. Where you do a yeast challenge or a grain challenge and stuff like that. And I think we did 3 of those. And then we went back to what my original idea was in 2013, And that was the pivotal time, is 2013, where we spread over to U.S. and then the other countries actually started to see what we were doing. Harry Brew 69 over in the U.K., Uncle Jonah, Zippy the Bavarian, guys like that from the other countries were looking, hey, this is kind of cool. We'd like to do it too. And they did it in their countries. And then we moved into 2014 where it was like, okay, well, all these people thought this was really cool, and we're gonna actually try and make this happen on purpose. So and that's where we really took the idea and we ran with it and made it a true global competition.
So it's kind of like a best of show, because you don't have categories that you judge in. It's every beer competing against every other beer.
And that was by design. I mean, we had talked about that at the beginning. We thought, me and some of the other guys from the other countries who helped me, go through this whole deal. We had a discussion and we were like, what can we do to really jazz people up? To really jump into it this year. And it was like, you know what, we're going to do and I had asked a bunch of YouTubers and whatnot, and we kind of made it we took people's advice, what they wanted to see. And it turned out, let's do a open competition, because most of the time you don't really see that very often. Most of the time you see it's a Scottish ale competition, it's an IPA, it's a porter, you know what I mean? It's that sort of thing. And I was like, you know what? There is a way to be able to judge style against style. I mean, we want to find out, what really is the beer out there that beer drinkers like. So, and that's where we kind of came through with the open competition for 2014.
So logistically, how does this work? If I want to enter a beer into this competition, how do I do it?
Well, and this is what makes, it is a total unique challenge, competition, whatever you want to call it, where every brewer is actually a judge as well. So what we do is as we start to gather the momentum of taking people's names down, find out where they're located, and we kind of got to build a census of where everybody's at. And then that's where we take that information and go, okay, so in the U.S., we might have 100 brewers. Well, that's just too much for one guy to try and handle, because what you do is you brew all your beer, you send your beer out to a hub. That hub then takes all those beers, breaks them down, puts them back in boxes, and ships them back out to you, so that you're getting everybody else's beers.
So for instance, if there are X amount of brewers in my hub, I've got to send X amount of beers to that hub so that they can be distributed out to all the other brewers competing in that hub.
That's exactly it. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And depending on how many hubs are in a country is where like in the U.S., we had to break the U.S. down into 4 hubs. We did the Northeast, the South, the Midwest, and the West, because it was just too many. So we ended up doing the semifinals before we actually hit the finals. So when you go through all of this, depending on how your country, moving forward, depending on how many people you have in your country or in your hub, you may or may not have a semifinal. But the idea is to get down to your top 3 beers of that country. And then here's where the best part of it, in my opinion, is. Now, we already, who all the best 3 are, in every country. Now, we go back to the hubs again, and we do another beer swap, and we get those top 3 out to those top 3 brewers from each country, and they are the ones that determine who the world champion home brewer is.
Ah. So is there a reason, why did you decide to do it that way? It seems like it's logistically a lot more challenging than a traditional homebrew competition. Why did you decide to do it that way rather than, say, having judges, a panel of judges at each hub, say?
Well, because we really wanted to get the viewpoint of your peer. I've been in a lot of like BJCP sanctioned um, competitions and whatnot. And if you post that question out to folks, and I don't want to knock on the BJCP, but a lot of times you get back scorecards for the same beer that really make no sense to you whatsoever. You know, it's the same exact beer. How can you have, say a 42 and a 23 on the same beer, and then it's just that one person doing that? It's a small amount. Well, if you do a true peer competition, you can average out all of those, right? So you really do get a good idea, because one of the biggest things with the challenges is it's not really, of course, everybody wants to be the best brewer in the world, right? But it's not as much, that's only a piece of it. You walk away from this challenge with a knowledge that you didn't have prior going in. You may have never tasted a pearl, which is a great example, before, and here you have that opportunity.
Now, how do you mentioned the BJCP, and the way that you judge is based on the way that the BJCP judges, right?
Right. We used yes and no, and this is kind of where it gets a little confusing. We used the BJCP more along the lines like, if you didn't understand a style, BJCP really spells it out for you. I mean, they do a great job of that. So you can go in and you can read up on the website as you're doing your review on a beer. You actually log all that information onto the website, and then that's all gathered and stored. So you can actually look there and see, okay, this is what an English mild is supposed to taste like if you've never had one, right? So you have a little bit of a basis to go off of. The other thing that BJCP is really good at is describing off flavors, because we did have a few beers that had infections and whatnot. You're going to run into that when you have as big of a competition as we had. So it was a great tool. We didn't really want to base how our judging went off of BJCP, because we're not a BJCP sanctioned event, but they are a great tool when it comes to dissecting beer.
So the template and all the entries, all the data is collected online on the website, and the form looks kind of like a BJCP scoring sheet.
It almost is. I think it's pretty much identical. We took everything from them, yeah.
So how is the data collected? How is it compiled? How is it distributed?
So we were fortunate enough to have one of the guys at one of our hubs, Paul Wicksteed, who's based out of New Zealand, built the website. And that's stuff that's way outside of my expertise. But there is a lot of, it's a real living and breathing website. He put in all that data gathering tools, in there. So he has the main brain of it in New Zealand on his server down there. So how that actually works, it's kind of like Superman jumping into the into the phone booth and coming out. You know what I mean?
Ignore the man behind the curtain.
You got it.
Now, so all the data is collected on the website.
Mm-hmm.
You can see a list of, and there's a video on the website, SJPorr SJPorr challenge.com, a video demonstrating what the form is and how it is. And you can actually select the beers that you haven't judged yet on the side. Put in your information, and that's all compiled, and is not visible to the participant right away.
Right.
But at the end, when you do you, like if I participate in the challenge, in the end, do I just get the data that's averaged? Or can I see all of the, like if you enter a BJCP competition, you get your score sheets, so you can see what each judge said about the beer, so you can kind of get an impression of how it was judged. Can you do the same thing with this?
Yes. Yep. You have the same. You have the same thing, so you can go through and see, what every person wrote down on your scorecard.
Is that anonymous, or can you see which judge said which?
That is anonymous. Yeah, you don't actually know who put what down, right? You just know, okay, so I'm going to have 15 reviews of my beer. You're going to get 15 reviews. I don't know who is behind those reviews.
Okay. On the in a BJCP competition, you can see who judged your beers. What was the decision in making it anonymous?
We just didn't want to put any undue pressure on anybody. You know, one of our things, we had a lot of discussions going through, and you learn a lot when you do one of these things. And we wanted to try and not influence anybody, and we were afraid that if we put your name out there, you know, like so and so, you know, judged it this way, well, it might give you an influence, you know, to judge that person differently than what you would have normally, because don't forget, you're actually a judge as well. So that's kind of where, you know, the anonymous part of it helped us out a good bit.
In looking at the results, did you see a wide range of scores, or did you see kind of a narrowing, or what did that look like?
So it was really cool to watch this thing come into fruition. I mean, it was awesome. At the very beginning, when we do your initial ratings of the beers, you would actually see kind of and you would expect this, a broader range of beers. But as we went through the competition, you started narrowing down those people, as so did the judging. The numbers do. They narrowed down as well. We had a difference on the Worlds. Just take, for example, between first and second place was 0.71 points. You know, and that's it. Really, between first and 15th, you know, it was only, I think it was less than 12 points difference. You know, so it really did narrow down as you, for lack of a better way to put it, as you started to filter out those beers that didn't score high enough. And this is kind of what you would hope to happen, because you're picking the better beers, right?
Right.
So you really want those to narrow down, and we saw that happen. And that was really cool, because to me that means it was, you know, it worked. It was a success.
Were you able to look at the judging numbers per beer? Like, for instance, if you entered a beer, I'm assuming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did. I came in fourth in the Northeast. I just missed it by a little bit.
Well, it's probably a good thing that the guy who the challenge is named after didn't win.
Yeah, exactly. It might have looked a little bit funny, but I was still hoping.
So when you looked at the beer that you entered, how was it a wide range of scores that you got, or were they pretty close together?
For me, they were actually fairly close together. I had a range of I had one that was really low, and then everything else was pretty much mid-range. Trying to think, it may have been 6 points, and that was which isn't bad. Like I said, I've been in BJCP with the same type beer, and I've had a 20-point swing on the same beer. Wow. So that was pretty cool. And then what we do is the average is kind of where it works, and we do this just like any type of competition. As long as we have enough people. There's certain times you have to kind of change the way of tallying up the numbers, but when you have the larger groups, it works good to kind of take out those anomalies by you throw out the highest and the lowest, and then the average is everything left in between. And that kind of takes out your anomalies.
So give us a picture of the logistics of this. How many entered, and how many beers did you wind up sending around the globe?
It was pretty incredible. We had the original sign up was 180 people signed up, and of course, with anything, you're going to lose some people along the way. So we only had about a 25% dropout rate. So we ended up with 135 people. So throughout those 135 worldwide, we ended up with 2,708 beers that were rated through that entire process. So, yeah, that's a few cases of beer. I mean, that works out to 112, almost 113 cases of beer, and you bring it down to 677 gallons, 32,500 ounces of beer consumed for one goal.
Yeah, now if you guys get as big as the the AHA competition, they had 3,000 more than 3,000 brewers enter. So of course they had more than 8,000 beers because there were multiple beers per brewer. But if you some mathematician out there could explain how we get to how we come to the number of how many beers would have to be swapped.
It's insane, and it's funny, those guys that are the hubs, that are part of it, they spend, depending on how far down the road they stay as a hub, you'll spend a month with boxes and just cases of beer stacked up in your basement somewhere, getting ready, make sure you get everybody's beer in, and then you break all those packages down, and then you repackage them and you send them all back out again. It's my wife has gotten used to it. That's a good way of putting it.
So who's paying for all this postage?
So what we do is the brewer, pays his initial shipment out. I know this is how we did it this year, and along with that, we asked them to send another $25 for the return shipment, and that actually helps. That really does. It's weird when you work this all out on paper. You miss spots here and there and whatnot, but so the brewer pays for his initial shipment, and then with that he usually throws $25 in there. Some were very generous and put in more. That wasn't necessary. Well, it wasn't required, but they did. Thank you very much for doing that. So you have that little bit there, but as you move through, there's more shipping that goes on. So what we do is like if you've been to the website, we go for sponsors. So we had sponsorship from around the globe donate as gold, bronze, silver, and bronze sponsorships. And what that did was bought them a little bit of commercial time on the videos. So, for a set amount of money, they could have their name called, their logo at the beginning of every review video that went out there, which gave them quite a bit of video hits. I think I worked it out. It was well over 300,000 video hits for that particular product. So it's pretty good product placement for somebody getting into it. So we had some Yakima Valley was great to jump on board with us. We had a whole host of sponsors.
So everybody that posted a video review of a beer or beers that they were reviewing for the competition were asked to put this lead in of the sponsors to their video.
Yes, yeah, that was a requirement. As you're doing videos now, that not everybody was required to do videos. We encouraged it, because we want to give our sponsors as much visibility as possible. But you would go to the website and you could actually grab that video clip, and then that was your intro to your videos. It's 42 seconds of me saying, all these people's names.
Cool. So who won? Who are the winners?
So our winner for actually came out of the United States, out of Illinois, Nate Pico. He won with a black IPA, phenomenal beer. And then second place came Grant Baker out of New Zealand, and third place came Dan Thilahihikava, which he laughs every time I try to say his last name. So New Zealand had a great showing. They had two of the top three beers. The U.S. did really well. When you look at, where we showed up in the top five, we had three out of the top six. We had three out of the top six. The one thing that I really, really enjoyed with the way that all of the finals came out was all the countries that participated the whole way through into the finals had beers in the top 10. So they all the countries were really represented well.
And there's a graph on the website, on the challenge website, that shows how many the participation from each country, and how many beers each sent. And New Zealand, they really stepped up.
Yeah, they did a great job. And then as you go down through, you can go to see for each country, where like Australia had their top three. Now they were unable to continue through to the finals because shipping is expensive, and once we got to the finals, each country was really responsible for raising the funds to be able to make that happen. And if we saw that it just wasn't going to happen, then it just wasn't going to, we weren't going to be able to make that work. And unfortunately, Australia just wasn't able to go through to the finals. There's nothing against their beers were fantastic. James Rimmer came out as the first place. Cam Stansel and Chris Healy rounded out the top three for Australia, and they did a phenomenal job. They really did.
So I'm assuming you're going to do this again next year.
That is our hopes. Yeah, I mean we're still riding the high, of the 2014, and it's been really cool, And we've already the last that I spoke. So there's a newsletter that you can sign up to. And what that'll do is that'll send the brewer updates, on what 2015 is going to bring. And we've already got, the last I heard, we were over 80 people already, and it was only, at that time, it was 5 days.
Wow.
And we already had 80 people and additional 3 or 4 countries. So if we had a growth rate last year of almost 300%. If we have another growth rate like that again, it's going to be real interesting to see what 2015 brings.
You might have to come up with more hubs.
Oh yeah. We've already New Zealand. They're already committed to. He's doing at least 3 hubs in New Zealand already.
Yeah, I said next year, but it's already this year. I guess. Got to get used to that. Right. So when are the deadlines?
We're going to put all that together. It's a year-long event, so it'll be much like it was in 2014. The finish date's going to be. Now we might kind of move it around a little bit. The holidays really did have an effect on the finals this year, so we might kind of move the dates around a little bit. You can almost take off the website what the dates were for 2014, and they'll be much the same as what they were for 2015.
So if it's a year-long event, should brewers be ready to rebrew a recipe if it's for instance, a hoppy pale ale that could fade over time?
Well, we're still deciding on what the theme's going to be this year. For 2014, the theme was brew your best beer, a beer that can stand the test of time. We like to do these as themes. And here in the next probably 2 to 3 weeks, we'll be getting all the hubs together, and we'll be having those discussions on what the theme will be. If we'll stay with the same theme, which a lot of folks want us to do, or if we can come up with something a little bit new and exciting.
And I imagine you're open to suggestions.
Absolutely.
It would be fun to, well, of course, the field is wide open on what you could do. You could do everything from a traditional beer style to the most wacky thing that people could think of.
Exactly, and that's one of the great things about the. That's why I like to kind of gravitate back towards letting the brewer be a brewer. Do what they do, what they enjoy. Get out there and be creative. I mean, that's really what it's all about, right?
Yeah, and that's we are. Through one way or the other, we home brewers are influencing the world of beer at large.
Oh yeah, yeah. The freedom that we have as home brewers. I speak to professional brewers all the time. I have a lot of friends, especially with the way that the whole SJPorr challenge has grown, and the YouTube thing. I've had good access to the professional brewing world out there, and they all say the same thing. They really some of them miss being home brewers. They do.
Miss being able to play.
Exactly. Yeah, because they're really. I mean, when you're doing it for real, you're pretty handcuffed. Where we just have a freedom, to do whatever we want. It's only a 5-gallon batch, right? If you mess it up, you just keep that one for yourself.
Or if you brew as large as 5 gallons, we play a lot with small batches as well. So, of course. Well, this has been fun. Anything else that you want to say? Now is your pitch. If people aren't on YouTube, and I can't believe that people aren't on YouTube already, looking at YouTube or homebrewing videos on YouTube. It took us a while to get on YouTube, but you can see, if you go to youtube.com/basicbrewing, you can see us as well. But we still get more people from the traditional podcasting channel than we do from YouTube. But every day, I get more subscribers on the YouTube side of things. So, if you could pitch YouTube to those who haven't, who may not think it's worth their time, what would you say?
Oh, I would say jump on the Homebrew Wednesday wagon and ride it out. I mean, it's a great wealth of information, of brewing techniques, styles, equipment, just seeing what the other brewer is doing, or something that he's not doing, and you want to share with them. I mean, it's a fantastic thing right now. It's a great growing community. It's a great hobby, and it really allows you to be open to do what you want. So the best thing I can always say is enjoy the fruits of your labor. Good beer.
Awesome. Thanks, SJ.
Absolutely.
Thanks again to SJ. SJ invited me personally to participate in the Homebrew Wednesday crowd. It's tempting. It's another thing to add onto the list, though, so... Wednesdays are usually busy for me, but I guess I could record something ahead of time and then put it out there. So anyway, I have to find something fun to do. That might be another outlet for creative brewing stuff. If you have brewing questions, show suggestions, or just want to say howdy, write to james@basicbrewing.com, or just fill out the contact form on basicbrewing.com. And please don't forget to tell us where you're from. Check out our support link where you can throw a couple of bucks into the tip jar by subscribing financially to our podcasts. And if you contribute, you will be sent a link to this past year's bonus video with Steve cooking up some cabbage rolls. Good. Be sure to check out our DVDs, Extract Brewing and Partial Mashing, Stepping into All Grain, Low-Tech Lagering, and Concoction Mashing, and Introduction to Wine Kits. You can find them all on our site. You can check out our Basic Brewing shirts in the store as well. You can see a listing of the fine folks across the country who sell our DVDs on basicbrewing.com. And if there isn't a vendor in your area, you can order them online in our online shop at basicbrewingshop.com. Thanks to everybody who's continued to click on our Amazon.com link. We greatly appreciate the support. Our featured products this week that were purchased through the link are Professor Fuzzworthy's Beard Care Gloss and Conditioner with organic leatherwood beeswax and essential plant oils. And Smoke and Pickles, recipes and stories from a new southern kitchen. Smoke and Pickles. Thanks again, everybody. And remember, I can't tell who bought what, so no worries there. Just click on the Amazon.com logo on our site the next time you feel like Amazon shopping. We greatly, greatly appreciate your support. Don't forget you can also join the American Homebrewers Association and subscribe to BYO Magazine through the associate links on basicbrewing.com as well. That's all until next time. Until then, thanks for listening, everybody. I'm James Spencer. Production help for Basic Brewing Radio and our website is provided by Kelly Dodson. Basic Brewing Radio is a production of Active Voicing. Talk to you next time, everybody. So long.